Me here. Welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to share my very first pregnancy vlog with you, and I'm sorry this took so long to go up, but I actually don't plan to make a lot of these just because this is a beauty channel. So I'm just going to make 3 videos on my pregnancy, and I'm going to separate them into the first trimester, the second, and then the third. And for those of you who don't know, in pregnancy there are 9 months, and in those 9 months they're separated into 3 categories. So the first 3 months is called the first trimester, the next 3 months is called the second trimester, and finally the last 3 months is called the third trimester. And in each trimester you get different symptoms, or at least I'm getting different symptoms. So I'm just going to talk about each one for each video. So even though I'm in the second trimester right now, I'm going to talk about my first trimester in this video. So we actually found out that we were pregnant around Christmas time last year, and right when I found out, I wanted to tell everyone at the Christmas parties. But the thing is, in pregnancy, during those first 3 months, a lot can happen and there can be complications, and usually that's the time when a lot of miscarriages happen. So a lot of people don't like to tell that they're pregnant until their baby is considered, safe. But even after 3 months, the baby isn't always safe, but it's just safer than the first 3 months. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to wait until after 3 months to announce it to our friends and family. So how I found out I was pregnant is that I got my period a week early. And my menstrual cycle is regular, so I always know when I'm getting my period. And I got a week early that month. But then the next day, my period totally disappeared. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. This has never happened before, because usually for me, my period lasts for 5 to 6 days, and the second day would be the heaviest, and then the third day. So I looked up on the internet, and they said that it could be implantation bleeding, and that's when the fertilized egg implants itself into the walls of the uterus. And right when I read that, I was so excited, because the thing is, my hubby and I have been trying for a few months now. We decided that after we got married, we wanted to enjoy the married life. And when we finally started to try for our family, by the way, trying can mean a lot of different things. For us, it just meant having unprotected sexy time, but for others, it can mean charting their temperature. And the thing is, in high school, they teach you that if you don't wear a condom, you're gonna get pregnant just like that. But for us, it didn't happen that way at all. And after we didn't get pregnant for 6 months, we went to the doctor, and he said that the average couple takes about a year to conceive. So we're like, oh wow, okay. That's when we got back home, and I started, instead of just having sexy time whenever, I started to try to have sexy time around the time I was ovulating. And since, as I mentioned earlier, I had a regular period, I knew exactly when I was ovulating. And even then, we didn't get pregnant right away. So I guess we finally got pregnant in November because I missed my period in December. So right when I told my hubby that, he got super excited, and I told him on the way back home from my best friend's birthday dinner. And so before we got home, he stopped by the drugstore and he picked up a pregnancy test for me. And when we got home, he went to walk our dog, and I went upstairs to pee on the stick. And after you pee, you have to wait for 1 minute to see the results. So as I was waiting, I was just praying. I was like, please God. And right when I saw the positive line, I just, really giggly. And finally I heard my husband come in. So right when he came in, I set up my camera really fast. So I just grabbed the camera here and I put it right near the door, and I pressed the record button. And then he came upstairs, and I just said, I'm pregnant. And I thought he would say something to me, but he just cried, and he had no words, because later on we were talking about it, and he said it was just, he was so happy to even say anything. So he just cried, and he came and he hugged me. And the next day he went to the library and he borrowed 4 books on pregnancy. So he was super excited, and he wanted to be part of this pregnancy with me. So he read all 4 of those books, so he knew what to expect. And yeah, that was the beginning of our pregnancy. That was the first week, and we were so happy. And then what happened was, the week after, which was when I was really supposed to get my period, I got my period. Well, I thought I did. I was spotting. So then I got kind of worried, because that's kind of contradicting, since I just got a positive pregnancy test a week ago. We went to the doctor, and the doctor told me to pee in a cup, and then she said, yep, I am pregnant. But then she said that the thing is, like, since it's really early, sometimes you can have a miscarriage. And right when she said the word miscarriage, my heart just sank. Like, you can feel your heart sink because of the adrenaline rush. So then she said that what I can do is get some blood tests done, like 3 of them, and each time they'll test for my HCG levels, which is the pregnancy hormone. So the levels continue to rise in 3 days, it means that, you know, I'm still pregnant. But if it starts to decrease, it means I'm having a miscarriage. When we left the clinic, I was like totally sad. I looked so depressed, and my hubby saw that. I knew he tried his best to be strong too, but I know that inside he was also sad when he heard those words. So he told me, have faith. God has a plan for all of us, and you know, sometimes it's not the plan we want, but he knows what the bigger picture is. And that's when I decided that I didn't want to do those blood tests, because even if I did do those blood tests and it showed that, you know, my levels were decreasing, then nothing will happen, because since it's so early in the pregnancy, the doctor said that the pregnancy will resolve on its own if it does end. But then later on, I started to notice my breast change. That was the very first thing that I noticed in the first trimester, is my breasts. They became so sore and tender. And tender is definitely an understatement. They were very sore and painful. They also got bigger, so I was pretty happy, because I'm like, that means I'm still pregnant. That means, you know, the hormones are still there. And so that made me happy. But then I started bleeding again that week, and that's when I looked up on Google and found out that it could be an ectopic pregnancy. And you should never look at Google things when you're pregnant, because a lot of the times they give you a lot of bad news, or like the worst possible scenario. So it said that I could be having an ectopic pregnancy if I'm getting all the symptoms but I'm bleeding. And I was also cramping at the time, so I was really worried. And basically what an ectopic pregnancy is that in a normal pregnancy, the fertilized egg will implant itself in the uterus. But then in an ectopic pregnancy, like, it would implant itself in the fallopian tube, because for some reason it didn't get a chance to move down to the uterus, which is the womb. So when that happens, it's really dangerous, because as it grows, it can rupture and it can even lead to death. Sometimes it would resolve on its own, but sometimes you need to get the egg surgically removed, and you have to remove the fallopian tube, which only leaves you with another, you know, one more fallopian tube left. So when I heard that, I was so scared. But we couldn't really do anything because I was still too early in my pregnancy, and you can't find out if you have an ectopic pregnancy or a regular pregnancy until you have your first ultrasound. So then that's when we booked the ultrasound. And my hubby at this point, he already found an OB for us. Like, he was on top of everything. So he found an OB. I didn't have to do any research or anything. He just researched everything for us. And then he found one, and then she referred us to you know, an ultrasound place. Before we got there, I had to drink 3 glasses of water, and I needed to go to the washroom so badly. But you know, you can't, because you need a full bladder when you do your ultrasound. But right when I got in and I walked into the clinic, I was like this, like, oh my gosh, I gotta go. And then she's like, okay, yeah, just pee a little bit and then come back. So she let me pee a bit, and that felt a lot better. Another thing I forgot to mention is, besides having the large breasts during that time, I was also like, I needed to pee every 30 minutes, because then your uterus is growing and it's kind of putting pressure on your bladder, so you have to go really often. So just holding it in for 2 hours like that was very painful. So right when I got into the room, the technician told my hubby to go outside, and that already made me kind of nervous. And then when she told me to go on the bed, she tilted the screen away from me so I wouldn't see it. I read online that if they do find out that you have an ectopic pregnancy, they won't even show you the screen. They'll just wheel you out and take you to the emergency. Right when she started looking for my baby, and that's when I saw her smile. She kind of went like this. And that's when I knew that everything was okay. And then she got up and she's like, what's your husband's name? I'm going to get him. And then after that, I told her the name and she left. I just jumped out the bed and I looked at the screen, and that's when I saw our little jelly bean. And by the way, I don't know the sex yet, and I don't want to call the baby it, so I'm just going to refer to Jelly Bean as a he, and Jelly Bean is the fetal nickname of our baby. He looks just like a jelly bean, and so my hubby gave the nickname, and I thought it was cute, so it kind of stuck with us. So my hubby came in, and then she tilted the screen back at me. We saw our little baby move, and he was squirming like this, and then he started waving, and at that time, he didn't have fingers yet, so he just had nubs, so we kind of saw the nubs like this, and it was so cute because then he was doing this. So in the first trimester, I also went to my first OB appointment, and my hubby booked it for me because, as I mentioned earlier, he just took care of everything, and he also wanted to be a part of it, so he went along with me. And let me tell you, thank goodness I got a female doctor, because if I had a male doctor, I would feel so uncomfortable. Let me tell you what you go through in the first OB appointment. So what they do is you get a pap smear, and that's basically where they go into your vagina and they grab some cells around your cervix and to see if you have cervical cancer or any other types of problems. So I had that done, and that was my very first time doing it. So for me it was like a tad bit, it wasn't painful, but it felt like a pinch. After that was done, she asked me if I plan to breastfeed, and I said yes. So then she told me to lift my shirt up. She started feeling my breast, I guess for lumps and things like that, but it felt like she was massaging it. And then she started like looking at my nipples and like touching them, and she's like, oh, they're good for breastfeeding. And I was just like, oh, okay, thanks. And then she took my blood pressure, and then they also did a pelvic exam. And after that first OB appointment, that's when you get your blood work done. So they screen you for HIV, syphilis, hepatitis. They also take some more urine tests to see if, anything's wrong with you. And for me, everything came back negative, so that's good. So now I want to talk about more pregnancy symptoms, because in the first trimester, that's all you're going to get are pregnancy symptoms. So the first symptom that I noticed that I mentioned earlier were, my breasts being really sore and tender and increasing in size. And the next thing that I noticed was food aversion. So basically what that is that you look at food or smell it, and you just want to throw up, and you just can't eat it, and you just feel sick. So that was the next thing. And it really sucked because during that time it was like Christmas and New Year's, and that's when there was all these parties and delicious food, and I couldn't eat any of it. And I had to try to hide the fact that I wasn't eating the turkey at the party, because people would probably ask, why aren't you eating the turkey? Because usually I'm eating like a pig at parties, and people will notice. Like, I could eat salad, fruits, and vegetables in the first months of pregnancy, because that's all my body could take down. One thing I couldn't stand was chicken, and before my pregnancy, I love eating chicken and eggs. Those were the two things that I couldn't stand at all in my pregnancy. Like right when I smelled the boiled eggs, I just wanted to vomit. Everything that I liked, I didn't like anymore. So I couldn't get my proteins from them, so I had to get proteins from nuts and vegetables. Oh, and when I did try to force myself to eat, that just made it worse, because I would just throw it right back up. So even though I was forcing myself to eat food, it wasn't working. So instead of gaining weight in the first trimester, I actually lost a lot of weight. I think I was down to 85 pounds, which is way below my BMI, which makes me underweight. And that's something that I didn't want in this pregnancy, just because you want your baby to be healthy. So every time I did try to force myself to eat to gain some weight, it just wouldn't work. So food aversion was one thing, and finally that lasted for about 3 weeks. And then after that, I got the flu. I also had morning sickness. This is when the morning sickness kicked in, and it was actually worse than the food aversion. Morning sickness, even though it's called morning sickness, doesn't just happen in the morning. It can happen in the afternoon, in the evening, and the worst is like nighttime when you're about to go to sleep. And for me, I got it all the time throughout the whole day, and it basically feels like you're having a permanent hangover or motion sickness. Like you just want to throw up, and I did. I threw up a lot. That's the thing I was scared about the most. Like everything that was happening to me, I just kept thinking about baby and how it would affect baby, but coughing, throwing up, and sneezing doesn't hurt it. And I also experienced a lot of nausea with the vomiting, so I was always really tired and exhausted. Like every day when I would wake up, I would feel like I did like a 20-kilometer hike. Like your body is just, in the first trimester, you're always tired because your body is doing so much for your baby. And also I had the flu, so I was battling two things, and I was so weak. I couldn't even get out of bed to go to the washroom. My hubby had to help me and carry me sometimes. During that week, I also experienced fainting. So I actually fainted 2 times that week. And we were afraid, so we went to the doctor, and they said that I had low blood pressure, which is why I was fainting. So they just recommend that I get up slowly, don't do anything fast, because the thing is, when you're pregnant, your blood volume increases by 50%. And so when that happens, your blood vessel also widens, which means all the blood is down here. You don't get enough oxygen, and then you faint. So that's what happened to me. I fainted twice at home. And I also fainted once in public, and I actually fainted in church when we were praying. We were standing up and praying, and I kind of felt like I was fainting, so I was leaning on my sister, and then I just blacked out. And the next thing you know, I woke up and I was on the ground, and my pastor was praying for me, and they called the ambulance too. Another thing that happened with me, different changes in my body, is that I started getting a rash on my neck, and the rash was really itchy. And for me, I never had any dermatitis problems, but when I went to the doctor, she said it could be eczema. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I asked her if I could have some steroid cream, but she wouldn't give me any steroid cream because she said that, you know, that's not even safe for baby in the first trimester because it can cause development problems. So I didn't use any steroids. Instead, I just put witch hazel on the back of my neck. And now it's kind of healing a bit, but then it flares up once in a while. Like, it's just like eczema. So that's something that I have to deal with. But she told me that after my pregnancy, it's going to resolve itself. Maybe if I do my hair tutorials, you guys will see it in my hair tutorials because it's pretty noticeable. It's just like a rash on the back of my neck. And another symptom that I experienced was bloating. Your uterus is growing, so it's pushing your intestines up. So it's changing how your body regulates food. Your metabolism is also changing, it's slowing down. But now I'm also eating meat again, like chicken, fish, eggs. Like, I can eat all that again, so my food aversion is gone in this second trimester, which is awesome. Oh, by the way, like the first month or first 2 months, my tummy was flat. Like, I didn't notice any changes, but right when I hit week 10, no, I think in my journal I wrote week 13 or week 12. I think it was week 12. In week 12, that's when my tummy just blew up. Like, it seems like Jelly Bean just grew overnight, and this Jelly Bean is growing every day. During the first couple of months, I was actually using a mixture of coconut butter, not coconut butter, of coconut oil mixed with shea butter. And look, I've used up like most of it because you won't believe how itchy your stomach can get. And I actually made the mistake of scratching, and it wasn't until I was reading my Instagram messages and a lot of people were telling me not to itch it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I already itched it so much. So I don't know if I've already damaged my skin, who knows, but it was just so itchy. So I guess now I'm going to show you the bump. Okay, so here's my belly shot. I'm going to do this at the end of each video for each trimester so you guys can see how big Jelly Bean gets. So this is what my belly looks like when I'm wearing loose clothes. But then this is what Jelly Bean looks like when I don't have clothes on. So this is how big Jelly Bean is now. And as you can see, I have a birthmark here. This birthmark used to be so small, and now that I'm preggo, it's getting larger and larger. So I think it's cool watching it grow too, as well as my belly. And my belly button hasn't really protruded out yet, but I read that eventually it will come out. And right now it just feels really tight, and my skin is super tight right now. So I always have to lotion it, otherwise it gets really itchy. And as of right now, I've actually gained 5 pounds. So that's good because in the first trimester I was losing weight like crazy. Now I'm gaining most of it back. So that's it for the first trimester. For me, I found it to be really rough, but at the same time, of course, I feel blessed that, you know, I'm able to carry a child and be pregnant. So that's something that I can't overlook because, you know, I'll be forever grateful for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more pregnancy updates or belly bump pictures, definitely follow me on Instagram and Facebook because I keep you guys pretty updated there. And lastly, I just want to thank you guys for joining me on this journey because it means a lot that you guys care enough, you know, to respond to my messages on Instagram and Facebook and to leave me get well messages on YouTube. That just makes everything so much better, and it's just those little things that count. And I just want to let you guys know that I really appreciate it. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Ciao!